as far as today, tomorrow, this week. Obviously, we drop episodes every Monday, so this is something that you can do. There's some little things that we're going to mention today as far as what can I implement into my shop immediately? What are the easiest things, low cost, if not zero to no cost, to kind of see some things change inside of the shop. So in case you're brand new to this, I'm Automated Barbershop. We're a podcast based off of obviously our marketing platform. You guys will probably hear about that through different episodes, but we're just two guys trying to help the barbershop community and barbershop owners, barbers in general, really catch up with the times for us marketing, AI, automation, and ultimately just fill chairs. That's what we're here for. We're trying to help guys fill chairs. So we'll just jump right into it. I guess the first thing, and I know, our heads kind of typically go to two different directions. So at least for me, the first thing as far as the barbershop side goes is fixing your Google My Business profile so that guys can easily book, which will lead into a different point at some point in this conversation. But I think first and foremost, just making sure your Google My Business profile is accurate, it's up to date, and there's no misinformation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and let's dive into that a little bit because one thing I realized is most barbershops have a GMB page.
Yeah.
That's not the problem. The problem is either what you just said, hours are wrong, something's wrong on the page, which just is a non-starter for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also not optimized. Like
Yeah.
most like most Google My Business pages that I see from barbershops, you can't book through it. You can't see their services and prices. So it's things where it's like, yes, you have it, which is better than not having it. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but it also takes at most 30 minutes to figure out how to optimize it. And you're
Yeah.
leaving clients out of chairs, revenue on the table because you don't have it optimized. And
Yeah.
I think the big thing about the digital presence stuff that we're trying to get across is it's not one thing
Yeah.
that pushes the ball across the goal line. It's a bunch of little things stacked up on top of each other, which bulletproofs your digital presence. And I've said this stat hundreds of times, but 77% of customers, if everything else is equal, 77% of customers will choose the company that has the better digital presence.
Yeah. That's fair.
And so if you know already that yours is not good as other shops in your area, you're fighting an uphill battle that you are losing and you will
Yeah.
continue to lose because you're not willing to put in like the tiny amount of effort. So let's go into optimizing the GMB page, right? So
Yeah.
so we talked about add your booking link, make sure that you have the correct hours, list your services.
Good
One
phone
thing
number
that
too, like a
a
business
good
phone
phone
number, not
number.
the owner's second iPhone.
That,
Like,
yes, that's
I
such a
can't tell you
good
how many
point.
times I've seen
Thank
that
you.
where guys, I mean, it's a
Yes.
community where guys naturally have two phones. I get it. But for your online presence, to what Owen's talking about, like, just get any type of, when you have a CRM, whether it's ours or somebody else's, it doesn't really matter. But a lot of CRMs have built in phone numbers that you can either purchase or you can add on, things of that
Yeah.
nature. They might have a pool, but have a business number that is strictly for the shop's phone number, not even like, I don't know. I don't think it's an otherwise, because I've seen that, or like, I guess this was a couple years ago, back like in Minnesota. But a big thing I would see is guys using like essentially a home phone at the front desk. Yeah, this is a couple
Oh,
years ago. I'll
dude.
give guys some grace, but I would
Yeah.
imagine there's still guys, even some might be doing this. Well, like, why do I need to get some fancy, online number or whatever the case if I can just post like a business number that's a home phone that is just at the shop? And I still don't think that's good enough, if that makes sense.
It's not because it can't be text enabled.
Yeah,
And one of
exactly.
the big things about like you want your customers or potential customers to be able to reach you wherever they want to, not how
Yeah.
you would prefer it. And so we give all of our clients text enabled business numbers, which means you
Yeah.
can call them or text them. And all of that texting is handled with AI and automation. So you're not constantly responding to texts. But another way to limit some of that stuff, whether it's DMs or text messages, is by listing your service prices and having them be correct on your GMB page.
Yeah.
And so that's just kind of one small aspect of digital presence, but it's super important because if that's wrong, you're like customers don't trust you on their first interaction with your business
Yeah.
once they figure out it's wrong. So it's like you're just shooting yourself in the foot before you even have the chance to give them a haircut.
Yeah. That's a good point because that leads into having a website. I mean, so many shops don't have a website. And I think there's this misconception as well when we ask guys, and this isn't, I'll give guys credit, this isn't just in the barbershop community. We've experienced it through various niches. But over time, I've realized when you ask people, hey, do you have a website? And they say yes, they could be talking about a Facebook page. And that's not a website, even a
Facebook
one page
page,
landing
Booksy,
page. You know what I
anything
mean?
like that. It's not a website.
Yeah.
And that's what gets me so it's so frustrating because
Hmm.
it's like we saw the impact of adding a quality website, which was not thousands of dollars, by the way. We're not saying go
No.
out and spend 10 grand on a custom developed website. You don't need to. You can get good websites for a couple $100. Or if you want to set it up yourself, I know that GoDaddy and a few other places will help you build it with AI.
Yeah, Wix is a good
Yeah, Wix.
web
Yes,
builder
thank you.
too.
And so if your primary place that potential clients land online is your Booksy page, I'm just letting you know. And some people won't care. Of course not. Some people are not going to care.
Yeah.
But there's this percentage of people that are looking at it and are like, man, this is really unprofessional. This is super underwhelming.
Yeah.
And depending on the amount of barbers and services you have, you might only be taking up like the top, like left quadrant of the screen. So there's a ton of dead space and like they're not attractive websites to like it's another one of those things. Very low barrier to entry that a lot of guys just aren't doing because one, they haven't tried it, and two, they don't think they need it.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, simply, and this goes back to our ep from last week. So if you didn't listen to that, obviously go listen to that. But what we talked about at the end is tracking your data. And one of the things you can't do as well with those types of websites, whether it's Booksy, Square, whatever, you don't have total access to all of the data that you should have. When you
Yeah.
have your own website, now you have control over the data. And so that's just another one of those things where it's like, do you need it to run a barbershop that stays open? No. But nobody wants to just run a barbershop that's barely staying afloat. So
Yeah.
when you want to get in these growth conversations, when you want to call yourself a hustler, but you have a dog, I try not to cuss on here, a bad website, it's not good enough. It
Yeah.
it just isn't.
Well, and what is that like? That's one thing too. Especially with the folks that we work with. What does it say about you if you have a website and your competition doesn't, or vice versa, right? If
Mhm.
I'm a consumer, and you don't have to Owen's point, are people going to have I booked haircuts when I'm in a new city or whatever, not looking for like a website? Sure, of course, yeah. But if I'm looking for the best haircuts, like let's say when I first moved to Houston, for example, right? I went online and I was trying to find like the best, essentially like barbershop, right? And I'm looking for, if one shop is just like, some Yelp reviews, some great Google reviews, like cool, that's fine. But then if I see a different shop who has a website, and again, not some, website that's like $10,000 and everything's animated and all this kinds of crazy stuff, just a nice looking website. Because you also don't want to have a garbage website. Like,
Yeah.
if you have a garbage website, I can't tell you how common we've seen that in other niches, especially. But it's not to say go out and get some garbage website, but having a solid quality website compared to your competition having just a Booksy page or nothing, it's, you know what I mean? Like, even when on the GMB page, when you have like the book button, and then you have the website button. If the website button, or if your website button leads to your, booking site, aka Booksy, like, in no shade, but like, you have to upgrade. You
Yeah.
have to upgrade. Like, you
If
should
you
not
want
be under
to grow,
website.
if you want to grow, these are some of the areas that you have to address. And
Yeah.
you mentioned this before, but it's an important thing. A Facebook page is not a replacement for a website.
Yeah.
It's not. And I know that there are some shops out there, and a lot of them are older shops. They're not some of the newer ones that have popped up lately, but a lot of the older shops only have Facebook pages. And I'm telling you, it's not good enough. And so this kind of leads into something that we see a little bit. It's nothing, it's by no means a trend in the space, but the DM to book appointments. Gotta
Mm.
go. Got to go. It you cannot, if someone can't book an appointment in under 2 minutes using an automated booking platform, you have a severe problem. And granted,
Yeah.
there's not a ton of shops doing it, but I've seen more than a couple dozen in my, you know prospecting of thousands of barbershops. There are shops that do it. And I know there's like things like Manny Chat where you don't have to do it, like you don't have to be the one responding, but what
You just
percentage
have to
of
set up the
people that are
flows.
exactly? And it's like,
Yeah.
if you're doing that, why aren't you just setting up an automated booking process? Because it makes it easier on everyone. And
Yeah.
so if you're doing that manually, that's a problem. You're wasting time. You're wasting your client's time, because if you're tied to your phone like that, you're not present when you should be present in other things.
Yeah.
And again, it's just meeting people where they want to be met type thing, where it's like most
Yeah.
people just want to be able to book their appointment, choose their time, choose their service, and then they're set up. Because
Yeah.
every other appointment style service is like that.
Yeah. That's actually a really good point. And I think with that, with some of these older shops, just having success, because this is very common. Some guys might not see, I guess, the change or the difference when it comes to marketing and doing some of these things, because some guys have been in business, 10 years or close to 10 years, right? And they're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I don't have to do that." Well, yeah, because you've been in business 10 years, when 10 years ago AI wasn't really a thing at all. Automation was kind of still
Brand.
like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, even 5 years ago, automation was like just starting to kind of get some heat, as far as,
In
like
like
a
a no
Podio.
code situation where you didn't have to write Python code to automate something. Yeah.
Yeah, but it really didn't hit the scene. And so I think so many guys get into, that's one thing that I'll grant one of the, I won't say his name, but one of the guys that we've talked to recently, opening another shop, already understanding that, you know, this being a new location, just because you have the same brand, or if you do or don't, it doesn't really matter. Like, the same thing that worked for you 10 years ago to build your shop, and we've seen it. I wouldn't mention this if we didn't see it more than once. I'm just trying not to name specific clients or specific people that we have conversations with, but we've seen it more than a few times where the second location does not do the same as the first location, regardless if it's the same brand or not. And so I think guys are kind of living in a false sense of reality at times, where they
Yeah.
think my location, let's say I'm a hustler and I have one shop, quote unquote hustler, and now I got to open a second shop, and I just think that everything that worked for me last time is going to work for me now. That's not going to happen. I can almost
Mm.
promise you that. And I think so many guys fall into that trap of, I'm cool where I'm at or whatever. Maybe I'll open another shop. But if you're not going to take this stuff seriously now, like, once you get to a situation where you're running two shops, the last thing that you want to do is try to start moving new things into two locations at the same time, let alone if you have your new location, let's say that gets on, a certain new platform and some,
Mhm.
marketing stuff, right? Well, now what are you going to do? Is that just going to have nothing to do with the first shop if you're keeping the same brand? So it's things like that that I think guys are not thinking of, thinking
Yeah.
long term. What are my true goals? And obviously we can talk more about that in the future, but having that kind of forward thinking mindset to where,
Hmm.
okay, what is the foundation that I need to build now so I can kind of stack everything else on top of it if I want to open another location, if I want to add more chairs, if we want to move the shop to go from,
A
6
bigger
chairs to
location.
10
Yeah.
chairs, you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's this guy on Instagram, and I'm not gonna say his name because no free ads, but
He said no free buzz, no free
but
buzz.
he has multiple seven-figure barbershops, and he said something that really stuck with me. He's like, anybody who's a good barber can pretty much open up their own barbershop and it can go okay. Where that changes is when you open up a second location because you have to become a business owner.
Oh,
And a lot of these things, and again, this is no shade. We're just trying to be as real, excuse me, real as we can be. Most guys that open up barbershops are just really good barbers and want to work for
yeah.
themselves. I'm not saying everybody, but we've talked to a fair amount of people who like to play businessman, but they don't do what businessmen do when it needs to be done. And these are all of the things: systems, processes, automations, client experience, client retention, all of this. These are foundational aspects of just running a successful business that somehow have been kind of left behind in a lot of barbershops. And so adding on, or I should say, adding these kind of fundamental pieces as you can, because we understand not every person is in the position to go out and buy something like automated barbershop, even though it's a pretty damn good price. Not everybody's in that position. So, what does that mean, Owen? It means do what you can when you can do it, right?
Yeah.
If you have 200 bucks to go get a website, go get a website. When you have 30 minutes, whether it's after a day or on the weekend, optimize your Google My Business page. Figure out all of your flows in Booksy, Barberly, Square, Vagaro, whatever. And make sure it's as good as it can be. And if you don't have that already, do that now. Like stuff like that, where it's like
Yeah.
you don't have to add all of these things immediately. But just know, especially with how fast technology moves nowadays, like the speed of like technologic innovation is so much faster than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And so the speed at which you're getting left behind increases every single day that you don't put these things into your shop. And I think going back to the false sense of reality, it's this like psychological thing where humans, if one thing's been happening consistently, they assume it's going to happen forever. And that's just not real. That's just not a realistic perspective on the world. And
Exactly.
so picking up some of these things as you can allows you to build the foundation to actually spend money on marketing and funnel people to that. Because if you don't have these things, you can spend 2 grand, 5 grand, 10 grand a month on Facebook ads, and it's not going to matter. You're not going to see the
Yeah.
return you want because you don't have the framework set up to handle that type of influx of new people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's very tough for guys to understand is, well, I can just market at any time, no matter, where I'm at. And I think that's one of the biggest things that happens, not even just with us and barbershops, but even throughout the years working with clients. Like the first thing that we always do with folks is kind of check where are we at right now, right?
Hmm.
Where are we at as far as, do you have socials? What does your operations process look like? What does your
Yeah.
sales process look like? What is the flow of that? And do we need to fix things before we start pumping? Because if we start pumping traffic, if we start just pumping even more activity, whatever that activity might be, if your ops processes are broken or non-existent, pumping more activity into those kind of empty spaces or broken spaces is not going to make anything better. It just makes you so much more stressed. As someone who's done that several times before, it's such a headache. I can
It is.
promise you.
It is. And it's just not worth it at the end of the day. If you don't have these things set up, it's just not worth it. And one thing I want to touch on with a lot of this stuff is increasing your online reviews.
Mm,
Because we had a client, I think they had 400 something reviews, like
yeah.
400 like 5-star reviews on Google before we started working with them. And one thing that we realized very quickly once we started putting all of these like pieces in place is having those online reviews was a huge catalyst in driving more people to the barbershop.
Oh yeah.
Like it basically automatically ranked them higher than almost all of their competition. Basically, everybody that wasn't paying for a spot on Google, they were ranking higher than. And once they set up this framework, and I'm not going to lie to you, this also included paid ads, not on Google, but on Facebook. So there were some
Yeah.
people that were driven from Facebook to the website, but it wasn't the majority. Where once we started all this, the owner was asking every new person that came in, how did you hear about us? And it was one of two answers: the Facebook ad, or I looked up best barbershop near me and I saw that you guys had 400 5-star reviews.
Yep.
And even though they had those before, once all of this got added, they started playing a much bigger role. So I know that you're big on some of the stuff that we're doing with the reviews. So I'll let you kind of explain what our process is with that,
Yeah.
because that's kind of one of our main system improvements.
Yeah, I would say I'm so glad that you brought that up because with reviews, not just getting the reviews, I mean, getting the reviews is one thing to obviously push you higher in the search results, as you were kind of mentioning, but also at like replying to the reviews, which so many people don't do, or they give some bullshit response on Google where,
Thanks.
yeah, thanks, or appreciate it, or, something
Yeah.
so just bland. And yes, is it better than nothing? Of course, but Google is taking that into account. Are you responding to reviews? And there's even ways that
And
for
how
some of the
fast are you responding to reviews? That also
yeah,
plays a role.
is it, are you responding to it a month later because it's kind of irrelevant? I mean, it's better than nothing, I guess. But as you know, the marketing reports that we run has a built-in tool to identify if a business responds to their reviews or not.
And what their
So,
average response time is.
you know what I'm saying? So,
Mm.
I think those two in itself, aside from that, real quick, just to put that aside, I think to your point on the marketing side of asking, how did you find us, leads you down a path to know what you need to improve. If you're clearly
Yeah.
not getting people from your Facebook ads, if you're running ads or Google ads, and they keep saying, "Oh, I keep looking you up online," and it just pops up in like a list of search results. Okay, so you
Oh.
know that you can kind of put some fuel on the fire there, and something's not working if you're running ads. So I just want to touch on that real quick before we get into the review aspect. But on the reviews, there's so many ways to just ask for reviews. You can do it verbally, you can do it non-verbally. Whether you have a QR code on the window of the shop, you have a big old, those signs that have like two legs or whatever that
Mhm.
stand up or whatever, putting a picture on there. Every barber just asking your clients, hey, appreciate you coming in. If you don't mind, just even that, even though you can't really guarantee that. And I'm talking about some of the very like low barrier to entry
Yeah.
things that you can do versus obviously what we would recommend
Mm.
at the end. But it just, there's so many ways to either verbally or non-verbally ask for reviews, and I think that's the first thing that so many guys need to do. Because
Yeah.
how many times a small business, we'll take a small business for just a 30,000 foot view, how many times do you look up something that you need or a service, and half of the people or half of the businesses have less than 10, less than 20 reviews, but they want to, like, to me, if you're going to gloat that you've been in business for a decade, 20 years, 5 years, but you have like 4 reviews, like, what are you
Something's
doing?
off.
Like, do
Yeah.
people just not like it? Because, like, if you're so great, why are people now? If you have an online business, that's different. This is specifically in like a retail setting, service setting, because I think,
Brick and mortar. Yeah.
yeah, when you get to like e-com and like marketing services, it's tough because Google doesn't allow you for the most part to set up like a true GMB page, but that's a story for a different day. With
Yeah.
retail settings, like if you have people coming in constantly every day, especially a barbershop, why are you not getting, like, if I have, 10 people, let's just say for easy numbers, come in, you should be at least getting two of those people to give you
Yeah.
a review. It should not be
Mhm.
that difficult to get one or two people out of every 10 to at least give you a review. If your cuts are truly baller, like you say they are, and they're
Mhm.
truly the best in the city or the best in the state or whatever the hell you want to say, like, why do you not have more reviews? And having this is one thing I see a lot too in the barbershop community or just barber industry is the client giving a review to a barber individually on their Booksy does
Mm,
absolutely dirt for you.
great
It does
point.
nothing.
It's an excellent point.
Like, how are you, if you, and this is keeping in mind, if you're going to tell your barbers, hey, ask for reviews, and you let them all have their own Booksy, and they just, if you're kind of just like letting it be the Wild West, and you're not really having a structure, it's like everybody has their own Booksy, and, that's how we do it. It's like, okay, cool, but there's no reason for a customer to give you a review at your GMB location on Google or on Facebook versus going to the person who cut their hair, right?
Yeah,
So
that's a great point. And I think this is where it gets in the weeds a little bit because for a true booth rent only shop, or if you're renting out suites, little bit different, right? But a lot of guys are moving to hourly or commission based, where what you take home every month is predicated on how well your marketing is set up, how well your systems are set up. If you're running a booth rent only shop where you make X amount of money and that's it, and you get no percentage of the cuts, I can understand not wanting to put a ton of money into marketing because then it's on the barbers. I get that. We're not talking about that in this situation.
imagine this: every chair in your barbershop filled, every client returning, and every new review being replied to, boosting your shop to the top of search results. Because as you know, empty chairs do not pay the bills. And that's where automated barbershop comes in. The all in one system that keeps your clients coming back with automated reminders, built in business growth, review requests, and so much more so you can focus on the fades and not the follow ups. It's like having a personal assistant working inside of your business 24/7. There's no tech headaches, no marketing degree required, just more clients and less stress. Plus, it integrates with your favorite booking system and takes just 10 minutes per day so you can have less hassle and more revenue. So, get involved with the future of barbershops and watch your shop and your career grow to a new level. Let our team install the automated barbershop system into your business in less than 72 hours by clicking the link in the description.
But one of the shops that we helped a few months ago, every barber had a different Booksy page, and the shop had its own Booksy page.
Yeah.
It's like so now. Not only are the reviews not collected in one place where they're totally like building the total up and actually pushing search results, but you're now competing with each other for the same search results. You're hurting yourself ultimately. You're hurting your bottom line, and your barbers are hurting themselves because if someone else is doing better or the shop is getting more reviews than their personal Booksy page, whatever the case may be, at bare minimum, someone is getting screwed by that. And most of the time, everybody's getting screwed by that because you're fighting not only against yourself, but your competitors.
Yeah.
And even in small towns, small in context of like 30,000 people, 40,000
Yeah.
people, there's not just one barbershop. So if you're in like a metro area, a big suburb, you're really, really hurting yourself.
Yeah. And you have to be able to run a business at the end of the day. Like,
Yeah.
I I've heard this so many times where guys are like, I want my guys to succeed, or even if they leave, blah blah blah. Like, you should almost be having, and again, we'll talk about like barbershop experience, building culture, thing of that nature to build a shop that people want to come work for you for a
Mhm.
reason, not only just to make money, but because of the shop culture and because of how things are ran and things are very structured and things like that. But aside from that, you can't be a business owner and also have these feelings like, oh, but in case you leave me, I want you to succeed. Like, you can wish the best for somebody, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean that while you're running your business and they are working for your business or inside of your business, that you should be trying to help them. Like,
Build them.
and
Yeah.
it's you're building
There's
up
a
up and
yeah.
incentivizing them to leave.
There's a difference in promoting a culture of improvement, right? And being like, hey, we're going to help you get better at this specific cut, or we're going to help you do X, Y, or Z. And we're going to help you get more clients, right? But that's also different than being like, yeah, bro, build up your own personal Booksy page to 750 reviews and take all of those clients when you leave. Because, and if you do the client experience thing correctly, people are coming to your barbershop. They're not coming to the barber. Now, granted, that's never going to be 100% because people love their barbers, and I get it. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. I'm not saying you should be trying to force people to stay if a barber leaves. But you also shouldn't be in the boat where if your best barber leaves, there goes 45% of your clientele.
Yeah. You know what I
Because
mean? And you set him up to be
everybody
able to
that
take
got
all of
cut
it.
by exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's a fine line, right? Where
Yeah.
you're marketing the shop at the end of the day. And by allowing your barbers to have personal Booksy pages where they take all the reviews, you're not marketing the shop. You're
Yeah.
marketing one person. And so that's a really big thing. And I'm really glad you brought that up because I totally forget that totally slipped my mind. But
Well,
that's
and
a
it's
huge deal.
yeah, and it's tough for guys to even gain reviews. This is all again, all the things that we just talked about are all manual or relying on a person. Obviously, the number one thing that I'm going to recommend to everybody is going to be to automate whatever you can. And reviews is probably the easiest thing on the planet. Now, granted, this comes,
Requests and replies.
yeah, requests and replies on both ends of the spectrum, but this all kind of relies upon you driving people to the shop's reviews in the first place. So that's why we started with the
Mm.
GMB and then started talking about, hey, you're trying to push the shop because now if you have these kinds of things lined up, you have the GMB lined up and you have, let's say, some type of system in place. There's a lot of systems, obviously, including ours, but just so you guys get the idea that once somebody gets a cut and the service is finished, they will automatically get a text and an email. I know that sounds just like, it came from Mars, apparently, because guys aren't implementing this, but it's one of the easiest things that I think anybody and their mom can truly implement tomorrow, this week, right? Where, okay, Fred just got a cut 10 minutes after he left. Hey, Fred, appreciate you coming into the shop. Would you mind leaving us a review, 5-star review on Google? It's so easy. And then the link is there too, right? It just makes it so easy for them. And then when Fred goes and leaves a review, boom, he leaves it on the Google My Business profile. Now the system goes back and it automatically sees that Fred replied to or gave a review, and it's going to reply to Fred, say, hey, Fred, appreciate you. And now taking it a step up, not just having the same comment like, thanks for coming in. I think that can get, again, it's better than nothing, but I think taking it a step up where you can have kind of this simulated personal response with kind of this conversation AI stuff where
Hmm.
it's replying like a human would. So if, Fred says, I got my cut by John and, I'll be coming back, next Wednesday or whatever. The AI sees that and says, hey, Fred, thanks for the review. I'm glad that John, was able to give you what you needed. See you next Wednesday. Right. That was a very odd
Hmm.
example, but I'm trying to give the example, obviously, for the audio audience here that you can really get personalized responses
Yeah.
in a system automatically every single time somebody leaves one, and you're able to see what that's going to do for your search rankings, what that's going to do for
Mhm.
the people that are coming into your shop. Because again, I think having bad culture, not only, and we talked about this with some of our clients, bad culture doesn't just affect your barbers and your retention rate with them, but it also affects your clients, because clients sitting in a shop chair for 30, 45 minutes, an hour, you can feel energy around the room,
You
right?
feel the
Our
vibe.
guys, you know what I mean? Our guys beefing in the shop. And I think that's
Yeah.
the reason I bring it up, because that's something that's, a little tougher to fix, but I think guys can start to identify, like, hey, like this week, hey, start paying attention. Like, what is the culture in my shop? How do
Mhm.
people walk in? How do they leave? Right? I
Yeah.
think you can really pick up on that as an owner or as a business person in general, just looking and observing how people are interacting within the shop.
Yeah. And since we're kind of on this topic, this isn't necessarily a way to gain clients, but it's a way not to lose them.
Yeah.
If I had $1 for every barbershop Instagram page that I saw that said kid friendly and I followed it, and within a week I saw a post or a story go up of a clickbait girl twerking, trying to get more views on a video, smoking weed in the shop, like, not only are obviously that's not kid friendly, right? Let's be
Yeah.
real about it. But and I want to hit on the weed thing particularly because it's pretty common. Like, shit, I walked into a barbershop this week and I smelled weed. And it's like, I don't care. I don't care what you do on your free time. Do whatever you want. I'm a freedom guy. But I I disdain barbershop owners who allow their barbers to do that
Yeah.
because one, it shows that you have no control over your barbers, none. And two, you lack the perspective of the majority of clients where even if they don't care about weed, most people don't want to sit there and smell it,
Yeah. For
especially
30, 45 an hour.
especially when they're paying money to be there.
Yeah.
So those are and like the clickbait stuff on the socials, don't do it. It's dumb. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And there's if you're going to brand yourself as geez, I can't stop hiccuping. If you're going to brand yourself as the adult barbershop, there's a way you could brand yourself as like a weed friendly barbershop. You could do it. I'm not recommending it, but you
No.
could do it. But if you're allowing that, you have to brand yourself around it. But those are just two ways quickly while we're in this topic of culture that just knock that shit off immediately because you're losing clients because of it, even though you might not think it's that big of a deal. And I don't think it's a
Yeah.
big deal. I just know how most clients would react.
Well, yeah. I
Like,
mean, the most of America, like, because
yeah,
people aren't, to your point about lack of awareness or perspective, like, there's doctors, there's lawyers, teachers, people who have, other types of jobs that are, some more serious than others, that either their job doesn't call for that, they can't be smelling like it, or they just don't want to your point. And I think one of the biggest things is being professional. Like, that does not scream, that
yeah,
screams low tier behavior. It does not
yeah,
scream that you are a professional establishment that can justify charging, because we'll talk about, pricing episodes as well. I just heard another guy that I was listening to, just like
yeah,
scrolling through my feed
yeah.
talking about
Price is a
pricing.
real interesting topic.
Yeah, because so many guys are fighting for the bottom at $20, $25, $35, whatever, even 45. But I've visually seen some of the most successful barbershops charging 50, $60 plus tax, if not close to 100 on bundled services. So but to Owen's point, if your shop smells like weed, and again, I don't care. I could give two shits. Like, if I walk in, but we're not talking about me, because I have awareness and perspective that the other half of America, like, some people just don't like it at all. And there's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with them. Some people just don't like the smell. Some people just don't have never done it in the first place. But why are you automatically shutting off? Let's just call it even 10%. Do you really want to sacrifice 10% just for
Mhm.
quote unquote a vibe? Like, I don't know
Yeah.
about you, but I'd rather have a professional establishment where
Yep.
let your buddy go open a shop and hey, it's weed friendly and they charge 25 bucks, 35 bucks a cut. Cool. I'm going to scale my shop where, I can scale up to 8 to 10 chairs and I've created a professional environment where guys are now paying $60 plus tax, $55 plus tax, bundled services close to 100 plus tax. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And this also goes for your clients too.
Yeah.
Because if you are branding yourself as kid friendly, you cannot allow people, and I'm not saying don't cut someone if they come in smelling like dope. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying if that happens, or I shouldn't say if, when it happens, a conversation has to occur. And it doesn't have to be that serious. It's not that big of a deal. It's just, hey, bro, I'm just gonna let you know we are a kid friendly barbershop. If you could be mindful about smelling like the weed, thank you. I'm not saying be like a dictator about it. I'm just saying
No.
be mindful. And I think this leads well into the next thing I want to hit on is social media.
Yeah.
Because one of our best performing reels, I went on a 45-second tirade about how social media is not going to grow your barbershop.
Yeah.
And
It's
this came
branding.
from we have one of our OG clients. They have 15K followers on IG, a couple more thousand on Facebook. They've been on the local news. They've been on ES. They've been on Sports Center. So most barbershops cannot compete with that type
Yeah.
of presence and social media following. They were drowning, bro. Why? Because yeah, they posted sick ass cuts. They posted the pictures with the pro athletes. And it was good content too. But like Caleb just said, it's branding. And yes, there is a marketing component where a percentage of people will see the haircut and be like, damn, that's awesome. I want that. Do you want to know what I see when I see an African American man with a super sick fade? Damn, that's a super sick fade. Do you want to know what doesn't go through my head? Oh, I should go in and get that. You want to know
Yeah.
why? Because I look dumb as fuck.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, it's literally not. And I think guys get so confused by that. I don't know why
Yeah,
you think that you're just going to magically post this viral post and because that's the crazy part is that most of the time they're just posting cuts. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Or trying to do too much on reels. And it's like, you really think that's going to make you all of a sudden go super viral and people are like, that right there is making me want to become a customer for life. No, dude, it's branding, it's
yeah.
SEO. That's what we use it for. Like we're on every platform imaginable for social media for the podcast, but don't give a shit about TikTok. Don't give a shit about Twitter, like or have these other platforms that we're on. But it's branding, it's SEO. So when somebody
Yeah.
searches us, like if you were to look up, let's just say we have ABC Barbershop, for example, and if we're on every platform imaginable and we're posting, blog posts and all this kinds of stuff. We don't care how it tracks. We don't care what the data or the analytics says. What we care about is when somebody searches up barbershop near me and ABC Barbershop has 3 blog posts, an Instagram, a Twitter, Facebook, whatever, regardless of how active we are on it or not, or what kind of content we post. It's just the fact that someone's like, wow, they're everywhere. Like
It's
it,
just taking up more slots that then you're taking them away from your competitors.
yeah,
That's the big thing. And the crux of why social media will not grow your barbershop is because I know for a fact 90 plus percent of barbershops do not have the financial resources to hire a content guy, a videographer, those two people alone, right? Where yes, will viral posts most likely bring a few more people to your shop? Yes, of course, just because you're getting more eyes on it. But that's not plannable or sustainable or so if you're only relying on social media, and I talked to a kid, actually a child barber not that long ago on Instagram, and chalk it up to him being 15 years old, but he said, I'm going to start a bar because he's gotten all of his clients through Instagram. He only has 30 something clients, and a lot of them are people he knew before he became a barber. And he was saying that once he starts his shop, he'll never spend any money on marketing because he's so good at Instagram. And it's like, okay, tell that to the landlord when you can't make rent.
Yeah,
Like,
dude.
it's, and so granted, I am never going to discredit social media because having a decently big following, that helps with your online presence. It absolutely does. And I'll never tell a barbershop owner or a barber not to post their cuts, because if you're proud of it, post it, put it out there. Like, not even for other people, but for yourself. And that's a whole nother thing in terms of like ego, where people want to be the biggest, baddest barber on Instagram, where it's like, okay, that's cool. Like, it's like, I'm glad you got 15,000 followers, but like, you're hitting us up begging to help out because you need it.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that
so, yeah,
makes no sense to me as far as why guys want to, and even with Instagram, like I'm not going to say it can't be done, but most guys don't know how to do hyper localized content that's so
correct.
specific to your area, where the followers that you are getting and the engagement, because now you have to factor in whatever followers. Let's say you have 50,000 followers, right? How many are actively engaged followers? So now it's probably a small percentage, right? Even if it's called 10%, right? Now, out of that 10%, how many of those are actually local to the shop, let alone in the same state? Like, that's what guys aren't thinking of is, okay, you cool, you blew up on TikTok, you blew up on Instagram, whatever the case might be. But it's not saying that half of those people are anywhere close to your shop that will do any business with you.
And
So,
what and what's the percentage of your followers that are other barbers or barbershops? Because
right.
it's higher than you expect. Because
Yeah.
when I get followed by a barbershop on my personal IG, it'll come up because I follow a lot of barbers on my Instagram, or pardon me, barbershops on my Instagram account, and a fair amount have followed me back. So there are some, when they follow me back, it says followed by ABC Barbershop and X amount more. And it's like, you only have, let's say, 300 followers as your shop, and 5-10% of those are barbers or barbershops in your area. So now you're adding another chunk of percentage on that are not people who are going to come into your shop to buy. So we're
Exactly.
talking, and like, especially after a viral video, that's a great point. The potential of a local person seeing that and making a buying decision based off that is pretty low. So
Yeah.
relying on organic social media to drive your growth and bring in new clients consistently, not saying it won't bring in clients, but bring in new clients consistently, is not a realistic expectation.
Yeah.
It's not. And also, I don't know. I truly think a lot of it comes down to ego, where people just love seeing that they have a big follower, number, and they don't really care what the outcome of that is, because in their mind they're not addressing or even looking at the actual problem. They
Yeah.
just think that a big online following will carry them. And it's like, use the example of your client list. Like, one of our clients sent us over his barbershop's client list. There was 1,400 names on it, just under 1,500 names. They had less than 100 active clients. So think about it in those terms, right? Like, how big is your actual client list and how many people truly come in once a month?
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing with social media following.
Yeah.
And so, shifting your perspective of, oh, if I just go viral, everything's going to be fine. Oh, if I get a big follower count, everything's going to be fine. Bro, no. No, no, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. And again, I will never hate on someone trying to grow their, IG account, TikTok account, whatever, because branding is important. It's just not the most important thing in terms of bringing new clients through the door. Unless, and this is kind of the big but, if your content is centered around the experience in the shop,
Hmm.
that's where some of this stuff can change.
Yeah.
Because as we've said the past 2 episodes, and we'll say probably every single episode of this podcast, you can get great cuts almost anywhere.
Yeah.
So the whole, and this will be in a, branding as an experience episode, which we'll hopefully do next week or, in the next couple of weeks. But going based off, we have the best cuts, we have the best lines, we have the best fades, it doesn't work. And it doesn't work for a reason, because everybody has great barbers and has great talent for the most part. Not
Yep.
100%, but a large amount of shops have great talent. So if instead of centering your content around just great cuts, if you start centering it around the experience, that's where you can see some actual growth solely due to your social media. Again, even that is not going to be your primary driver of growth. It will not be,
Yeah.
but it'll still do a lot better than just posting haircut after haircut after haircut after haircut.
Yeah. And you have to have, to Owen's point, you have to have an experience to be able to promote in the first place, which most guys got to clean up house first. Not saying
Yeah.
fire all your barbers. I'm saying like literally get your culture intact. Some of the main things that we talked about today, obviously the GMB page is crucial. Get that squared away, get it optimized, get it all in unison, essentially, with your social media, making sure that all the information is correct and updated and optimized. The reviews, those are all little easy things. The social media, just make sure everything's clean. The shop, make sure that you're professional, and making sure that by being a professional establishment, like what does that say? I think that's the last thing that I'm personally going to leave this on is the words professional establishment. Is that what your shop resonates with people as? Because that can fix a lot. I think, at least for me as a consumer, coming into a shop where you can just feel how unprofessional it is. And again, this is personal experience. So I'm not going to say this is every customer. Some guys like super laid back. I get that. But if you're not, what I'm trying to say is a professional establishment, just because some guys like, kind of a more like relaxed vibe, let's just say, let's say the shop sometimes smells like weed, whatever the case might be. So a professional establishment will not turn away those people at kind of like the lower kind of vibes, right? I mean,
Yeah,
but
no.
switch that, and if I go to a shop and the culture is very off, I can feel it, and it's a very much not a professional establishment at all. That's going to turn me away personally, and so I'm assuming that in larger groups, people who, again, parents with kids or whatever the case might be, I think your best bet is to go the more professional route, and
Yep.
because that's going to show through you, it's going to show through your barbers to your clients, and that's what presence you're going to be able to kind of promote online is no, we are a professional establishment, and then you can build an experience off of that, which again, to Owen's point, we'll talk about at some other point in time, but that's at least my biggest thing is professional establishment.
Yeah. And that's a good point. And I want to make the distinction just because I saw something recently versus like a high class barbershop and a professional barbershop.
That's
When
a
we
good point.
say professional experience, we're not saying your barbers have to be in a 3-piece suit
No.
and that's not what we're saying. We're saying you are respectful to all of your customers' time and the fact that they're paying you money for a service. You're not the God's greatest gift to clippers. You know what I mean? You understand that you are a customer service employee and you handle customers that way. You don't have an ego. There is a shop culture that promotes one working with each other, but also advancement, improvement. But the huge, and we're going to dive deep into this on a full episode about barbershop experience. But giving people the space to have the experience that they want within bounds, right? Whether they want you to be their therapist and listen to their girl problems or whatever, Cool, you can do that. Or because for me, I mean my cuts take 4 minutes at Great Clips, so I'm not getting into a deep conversation.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting in the chair and not pushing someone, not constant, like getting to understand that type of stuff. And then there's a lot more that goes into it. But those are some of the key things when I think about being a
Yeah.
professional.
It's
Um,
a great point.
and the last thing, the one big area we did not touch on is business partnerships.
Hmm.
We did this, or pardon me, we didn't talk about this because we're going to have a full episode on it because there's a lot to unpack there, a lot of different avenues, how to go about it. We're going to have our other business partner, Daniel, on it on that one because he's killer at that. He's been doing that for us for years. And so I just want you guys to know we're not leaving that out, but there is a ton to cover in that area.
Yep.
And I didn't feel like it was worth it, one, to just quickly go through it. And two, I didn't want to go through it without Dan on just because he's so good at it.
Yeah.
Um, but just remember there is another area where you can leverage local businesses, local sports teams, high schools, all of that stuff is another way to generate clients at a very, very low cost, a lot of the time free.
Yep.
Um, or it's just, a few discounts here and there, but that one will be coming also, soon. But build your foundation, right? You're never going to build a 10-story building if you don't build the foundation first.
Mm-hmm.
And we know most barbershop owners are hungry to grow and have that hustler mentality. They just don't know where to put that energy. So if you fall in that boat this week, at least take care of one of these things.
Yep.
Optimize your GMB page, optimize your booking page, and all of like the booking workflows. Start asking for reviews, whether that's verbally with QR codes or you're actually automating that, type of stuff, which we've talked about, and that's what we would suggest. And start building that professional culture and experience for your shop. Pick one of those four, or get a website, right? Pick
Yeah.
one of those five and just do one of them. And I'm not saying you're going to get, an extra $3,000 this week just because of that.
Yeah.
But as two people who are not from the barber industry, who were dropped into a barbershop and doubled its revenue in 3 weeks, we're telling you this stuff is important.
Yeah.
It really is. So just start with one if you can't dive in completely. Just start building up your foundation, because then in 6 months, then you're ready for an ad campaign that's pushing 100, 150, 200 new clients to your barbershop, and you're not dealing with the client retention issues. You're
Mm-hmm.
not dealing with bad systems. You're not dealing with broken processes. All of that, all of this makes the marketing side of things and driving traffic through paid ads primarily, it makes that process so much easier and way more valuable.
Yeah.
Way more valuable. So just start building this week. If you can't dive in completely, like I said, I get it. Not everybody's in the position where they can pay $500 a month. But just start building what you can, because it will add up over time.